Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This week's Torah portion is Parshat Beshalach, which is one of the most beautiful parshiot in the whole Torah. It is the part where the sea splits and the Israelites get to go free and leave slavery behind them. And it's also the parsha in which both Moshe and Miriam sing a beautiful song. And I want to look at that song together and look at particularly Miriam's expression and her experience with you. So I was studying this section actually recently with a group of almost bat mitzvah girls, and they noticed something. When we looked at the text, they saw that Moshe's song, which is often referred to as Yashir, or the Song of the Sea, is 19 verses long. Then, when we get to Miriam, who follows Moshe, it says in verse 20, "Vatikach Miriam haneviyah et hatof biyada," and Miriam, the prophetess, Achot Aaron, the sister of Aaron, takes the drum in her hands, and the other women follow after her, "Vatetzena kol hanashim achareha," and they also have with them these drums, betupim ub'mecholot, and they have their drums, and they do their dancing. And then there's, after that, verse 21 is the only verse that expresses the words that Miriam and the women sang. And it's actually a repetition of a verse that was said in Moshe's song, Shiru L'Hashem ki ga'oga'a, susrach vo rama bayam, sing to God who has triumphed gloriously, horse and driver have been hurled into the sea. And when these girls looked at this, they said, well, how come her song is only one verse and Moshe's song is so long? And I want to add to their question and also ask, why is this the verse that was sung by Miriam? Right? Why choose this particular expression? Shiru L'Hashem, right? Sing to God because God has saved us or God has triumphed gloriously. That part's beautiful, but then to the one specific detail is about everyone who didn't make it and drowning in the sea, that's kind of surprising that would be the most important verse to highlight in this moment. So I want to share a couple of answers that I found. So one answer I found was in a commentary named the Chizkuni. And the Chizkuni writes that actually Miriam repeated the entire 19 verses that Moshe said, that Moshe sang, but in order to not have such a huge piece of repetition within the Torah only repeated one of the verses, but that would be an indication for us that she actually sang the entire song as well. Another idea that someone shared with me recently that I really love is that Miriam only might have spoken this one verse, and Miriam and the women only sang these few words, but their expression was not just through song, it was also through dance. And the rest of the expression that they had to bring to bear was through their movement and through their drumming, and that there's many different ways to express ourselves, and spoken word and composing song is one way, but dance is a whole nother language, and musical instruments and drumming is a whole nother language. And so their expression was varied and multi-dimensional in that way. And I love that answer. But there's also another answer that I realized as I was looking through this again, which is that I actually wonder if Miriam's words are not really recorded in the Torah, because her words were specific for her women, the women that she was with in that generation. And that what we, so much later, are to take from this is not the specific words, those really don't matter, but what really matters is the way in which she goes about the process of finding a means for an expression in a moment that was so important and so monumental in their lives. And so if we look at verse 21, which is the verse that has the phrase that she says, Shiru L'Hashem, sing to God, it starts with the following phrase. It says, Vata'an lahen Miriam, which can sometimes be translated as Miriam chanted, but the shoresh, the root of Vata'an, is really anah, to answer, and she answered. And so it could be that she was answering Moshe, and Moshe sang the whole song, and then she answered and sang the song back. But I wonder if there's something much deeper going on here, because in the previous verse, it was so careful to say that she was a prophetess and that she had this deep understanding of these women that she was leading and she was dancing with and she was singing with. And I wonder if what she was able to do in that moment was to answer, to respond exactly to what they were feeling in that particular experience. And what we can take from Miriam is we can take the same words that she's saying if they're relevant for us. But I think those words weren't included because we are not meant to copy necessarily the same words, but our role is to decide what is the answer to the moment that we are living in. What is our vata'an? What is our answer? How do we answer the people around us? How do we express what we're feeling in this given moment? And how do we work together to create beautiful music and beautiful movement and beautiful sound that expresses our particular moment in life, our particular challenges, our particular triumphs? And the answer that we come up with is what we need for our generation. And that's going to be different than what Miriam's generation needed. And that's going to be different than what will be needed in a future generation or even in a few years from now. At every moment, there's a different answer. And so Miriam shows us the way, both in terms of listening and in terms of responding and expressing herself and bringing the women with her so that they can also find their voice and find their answer and their expression to describe and to reflect upon what they lived through in this moment. So I'm wishing you all Shabbat Shalom, and may we all find our ways to answer, to express, and to share what it is that we're living through. Shabbat Shalom.